Hello Slayers, and welcome to the Smile Kitchen. I'm Smiles, and thank you so much for joining me for my Chivalry weapon showcase and guide for the greatest weapon in the game and my baby, the Greatsword. I am unusually attached to this weapon because when you find harmony with it, I think this is the most satisfying weapon in the game. This weapon's attributes make it especially gratifying to use with a playstyle that is various and cunning and is heralded by players and creators alike for just how well balanced it feels. When selecting your weapon in any game, I believe there is what might work best for the situation and what you like, what works for you personally. I play games to have fun, so typically I'll choose what I like over what might be the smartest or meta, and for many reasons that I'm about to list, the Greatsword speaks to me. Now, I'm a new content creator and relatively new to Chivalry too, so what do I know? Well, at the time of recording, I've spent 495 hours in the game so far, with that time vastly spent on the Greatsword. At level 510, my Greatsword level is 368 right now, and according to Chivalry2stats.com, I'm currently ranked 383rd top user of the weapon. For now. My second most used weapon is the Messer at level 28. That's 2-8. So, while I may not tout myself as an amazing, gifted player, once I unlock the Greatsword, I basically never put it down, and I don't see myself doing so soon. Because I chose to learn this weapon the hard way, I've done a lot of research and I have a ton of experience, obviously, and I think that'll be useful to anyone curious about this wonderful weapon. I couldn't get a volunteer in time to illustrate all my points, so if you'd like to know more, I'll link some helpful videos in my comment below from Stripe Sweater and Soder Dave, R.I.P. I fell in love with this weapon and use it pretty much exclusively, so yeah, don't expect another one of these for every weapon. In fact, I'm using this video to go into some tips and features I didn't have time to go into in my first Chivalry 2 video. So be sure to check that one out if you haven't to see more on why I think this game is so great, but also how it could improve. Also, as such, a lot of these tips are applicable to just about every weapon. We're just going to focus on the classes available to the Greatsword. To me, everything great about Chivalry's combat is exemplified in the Greatsword, and the Greatsword highlights all the best parts of Chivalry's combat. It's not the best weapon because it's an instant win stick, rather because once you know how to fully take advantage of all this game's mechanics, it is a paintbrush for skill expression, and the battlefield is your canvas. Because of the Greatsword stat spread, using it well means developing generally good habits and utilizing everything around you to balance out its shortcomings. So what makes this baby so damn special? While the in-game descriptions usually leave us much to be desired, for the Greatsword, the description and its implications give us pretty much everything we need to know. We can take a look at the hard numbers courtesy of polehammer.net if that's more your thing, but we'll see the same description reinforced in the stats here. Long reach, long wind-up, fast recovery, high damage. So let's look at the most important lessons that this weapon can teach us and how to turn those weaknesses into strengths and get the most out of our big-ass sword. But first, since I know there are a lot of history buffs that play this game, here's a real quick history lesson on this beautiful beast. What we classify in the modern day as a Greatsword is really any sword that takes two hands to wield and measures to the height of a man or at least to his chin. This also contains what we know as Highland swords in the game. So while the size is varied by who's carrying it, the weight of them usually only be about 2.2 to 3.6 kilograms, or around 5 to 8 pounds, but could get all the way up to 14. They saw use from around 1400 to 1700, usually across Europe and in Asia, but big-ass swords are ubiquitous, and all over the world names for great swords usually just refer to their size or their two-handedness. Like the German Zweihander means two-hander, and the Scottish Claymore translates to big or great sword, and that's where we get the name. In battle, they served a similar purpose to what they do in-game, and in between polearm and swords, best used to take down horses and riders and break up pike formations, get between shields. Due to the unwieldy size, it took a lot of skill to wield them, so they usually were carried by more seasoned or higher-ranking warriors, and because of those factors, a lot of the more ornate ones you see were ones that were typically carried in ceremonies or parades and things of the like. Alright, enough history. Let's start learning this thing. Getting started, for class, I recommend starting with the Knight Officer while you're getting used to the handles on the weapon and practicing your footwork and your situational awareness and being mindful of your surroundings and your health. The Messer is probably the closest resembling weapon that you can start with, but feel free to use what you can, as unlocking the Greatsword has to do with the level of the Knight or Vanguard classes, and if you get hooked like me, the only way you'll learn other weapons is by fighting them. As you get more comfortable with the weapon, footwork, and surviving, start switching to Vanguard Devastator on objectives or in situations that let you stretch your legs and move around more. As you get used to being more slippery and using the terrain to your advantage, you can limit using the knight to situations where you're more cramped and having more health is more advantageous, but having less mobility doesn't really matter. As you get more comfortable, you can decide which class best suits how you want to use the weapon and what works best for you. This is just the path that I took and what I recommend because it can be really frustrating to die a lot, and playing Knight gives you more room to make mistakes. But switching to Vanguard is like dropping the training weights, freeing up the movement and allowing you to glide across the battlefield. Ultimately, it comes down to your goals and what's the most fun for you. While being able to stick it out and take damage is great, for me, being slippery is so much more fun, because if they want to hit me, they have to catch me. Spacing, situational awareness, battle sense, whatever you want to call it, these are essential skills for doing well in big team battles and even duels, as well as in life. With the Greatsword, this translates to more than just our reach, but how we use it. Particularly with longer weapons, you may have heard of the Goldilocks zone, where you'll have a reach advantage over your opponent, but they would ideally not be able to reach you at all. While it is generally a good idea to keep the enemy there, realistically, if they have a shorter weapon, it is likely faster, and they're going to try and close the distance and gamble you. And if they do have a reach advantage, they'll try to keep you even farther away, and then you'll be the one trying to close in. However, you can use that you know these things to your advantage. Dance in and out of your Goldilocks zone and theirs. Bait them into striking and weave around and outside of their attack so you can close the distance as your attack is coming around to strike them. And don't forget your jabs and kicks for when they get too close and you need to interrupt them or make some space. Even if you don't land a kick when they're blocking, it'll still create more space between you and the enemy that could be crucial to avoiding damage or setting up your next attack. You can also feint into kicks and jabs, and you can use this to bait them into gambling. On the other end, don't be afraid to follow through on slashes if you think you're going to miss them and turn them into last-second spins. Pay attention not only to the enemies but to the scenery. Characters can't pick their effing knees up in this game, and while it's frustrating at first, you can learn the maps and turn those frustrating footholds and corners into traps, giving you the movement advantage. Bait them into thinking they're going to corner you before turning it around on them. At first, the biggest downfall to the long wind-ups is that it's really easy to see them coming and evade or defend. But the Greatsword is not necessarily a slow weapon, you're just not excelling enough. The long reach means a very wide attack arcs and overheads that can reach around blocking, slashes that can damn near hit behind you. You can even jump during the stab wind-up to get around the enemy's block that way. Long wind-up also means long time to feint and a longer counter window, so you can lay more complex bait with late feints or triple feints or make corrections if needed. One downside to the longer attacks and the slashing aspect is that the Greatsword has almost no hit stop, making it take longer to reset if you miss. But we can mitigate this by once again using our surroundings to our advantage and stopping our strikes on structures or even the ground. While getting used to the Greatsword's timing and feints, watch your arms to get a feel for how you can weave those feints together and trick your enemy. Another great way to work with this is with flicking, by looking in one direction during wind-up and then flicking your mouse or joystick to where you actually want it to go once you see an opening at the very last second. This baits the enemy into taking risks they feel safe with only to be made to regret it, as they'll be planning for you to drag or excel and then you do the opposite when they least expect it. You can also flick in the opposite direction to drag the flick. This is great for avoiding the counter window or give yourself more time to land hits, particularly overheads and stabs. Slashes, it's usually best to follow all the way through if you're going to miss and turn it into a spin as I mentioned before. Once you get used to this, you can turn flicks into wiggles to intermittently drag and excel during the same attack and really mess with people. Another major downside of slow attacks is that there is no time to stand on ceremony. You have to plan for what they might do next, and if you make any mistakes or misjudgments, the quick recovery speed is great to save your ass and get your block or a new counter up. The quick recovery is just a net positive, especially paired with the long counter window because you can correct or make up for your mistakes pretty easily and continue to adapt to the fight. And so of course you are rewarded for your use of movement and cunning with pretty high damage. Unless you're only hitting people in the legs, your time to kill should be about 2 to 3 hits, so you can hopefully get in and out of fights before backup arrives. Or if you're surrounded by other fights happening, weaponize your ADD and help your team out, weaving through crowds, getting hits in where you can. While you may steal some kills this way, you may also just rack up takedowns, but your impact will be felt all the same, so try not to get greedy. The best part, though, is that this weapon has moves that can one-shot archers! The heavy overhead is enough to make them regret always using first person, and on Vanguard you also have the sprinting special. Because you're sprinting, it's easier to serpentine and avoid arrow hits if they see you coming. In time, you'll learn their draw speeds and how to best avoid them. The leaping sprint has an excellent range, comes out surprisingly fast, and can knock enemies down like the night charge. It can send unaware and low health enemies flying, which is never not funny, but for archers it is a swift and immediate one-way ticket to the respawn screen, where they will hopefully rethink their choice and switch to a respectable class. So, after seeing ways to turn the Greatsword's shortcomings and weaknesses into deliberate strategies and strengths, what's the best playstyle for the Greatsword, and therefore for the game in general? Why, all of them. Every playstyle, every technique, every combo, every inch of every map are all tools in your tool belt that you will have different uses for in different situations. No matter what weapon you use, it's important to never be a creature of habit. Read your opponents and your surroundings and try new things until you find what works, and then expect them to adapt in kind. Whatever tool you choose in that moment, always be planning your next move. Do you want to match their aggression? Or do you want to bait them into a corner or under a trap? Or just read their moves defending and lull them into a false sense of security before exploding into aggression? There are many ways to play this game, and the best and most viable one is always the one that works, and that will change moment to moment. Ultimately, the best weapon in this game, or any game, is the one that you feel the most comfortable with and have the most fun with. Is the Greatsword the best weapon? I don't know, but I think it is the greatest. What's your favorite weapon, and why? Let me know down in the comments, and let me know if you have any other helpful tips that might help out new players, or help out people who are just too used to what they're doing. I really appreciate you watching this far. If you want to see what I think of the rest of the game, you can check out my first Chivalry 2 video on why it's great and how it can improve in the sequel. That should be on the screen here, and subscribe for my next video on why I love my favorite map in the game, where I'll also probably take the time to get a little bit more into maps that I didn't before. If you want to make some like-minded friends, you can join my Discord to get in on the start of my community, where we also play Monster Hunter and where I announce when I'm streaming these and other single-player games on Twitch. Join the Unyielding if you want to dive headfirst into the largest community for Chivalry 2, led by my friend and fellow creator Shani Salami, and subscribe and follow me at my other links and socials to be informed of when my new videos release. Until then, I've been Smiles, and the kitchen is closed.